när det är live.
Mm.
Jag försöker göra det. Det går inte alltid, men jag försöker göra det.
Och sen kommer jag prata lite själv.
Har du satt igång det? Jag kan inte använda det.
Nej, det är intro. Det är jag alldeles strax nu här.
Ja,
Vi har kört 5 minuter intro.
ja.
Hej alla vänner, då är det dags igen och nu ska vi köra en intervju här med Anna Iversen och Mark Attwood. Och Mark har inte riktigt dykt upp ännu. Så att vi får improvisera lite. Och någonting som är väldigt spännande faktiskt, som jag fick här, det var att jag fick från Urban Hadén fick jag han har ljudsatt en dikt faktiskt som Mark Attwood har skrivit. Och jag tycker att den här är jättevacker. Så jag tänker att vi börjar med att spela upp Urban Hadéns. Och han har försökt skicka den till Mark, men Mark får väldigt mycket mail. Så att vi börjar med att spela den här nu. Och
feeling it now, feeling it all, pushing through the alchemical cold. All of this pain, when will it end? I transcend. The eagle and the condor merging as one, decoding the codes from the light of the sun. Acting no more, no time to pretend. I transcend. The character's mask, it falls to the floor, embracing the love and fear no more. As I dissolve, to God's will I must bend. I transcend. I transcend.
så vackert. Tack så mycket Urban. Det där är jag övertygad om att Mark kommer bli jättetacksam. Mycket vackert. Nu ska vi se här. Så, då kopplar jag över in här. Och så. Okej, vänta, jag ska bara... So, we are live, Mark. You are so welcome.
Hello, I can't see you, Cornelia. That's weird.
No, you can't see me.
Okay.
But the audience can see me in the live recording.
Okay, cool.
So,
Hello.
hello there. I just played a song for you. It's a Swedish man called Urban Hadén. He just put some music to your poem. And it was really beautiful. Yeah. So I
Which
played
poem?
that. Well, maybe you want to hear it again.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that.
Hi, Anna.
Hi. We made it.
Yeah, one of those, everybody was ringing me at the same time. Are we supposed to be hearing something? I can't hear anything.
No, I can't hear anything either.
Oh, you can't hear it?
No.
Okay. I'm sorry. We will have to solve that. So great to see you all, and that we finally made it. We have planned it for a couple of weeks now.
Yeah.
And
well,
you are so welcome, Mark. Please introduce yourself to the Swedish audience here.
Jag heter Mark. That's all I know. That's all the Swedish I know. Well, in fact, I also min flicknamnsname är Katie, but that was a long time ago. Yeah, my name's Mark Attwood, and I'm a poet and a truth seeker, basically. And I'm in the west of Ireland. I'm English. I've had. I'd rather be asked questions actually instead of just talking about myself.
But you have been a journalist, right? Or
I was a journalist at the Daily Telegraph and for 1988, 89, a long time ago. I was a pilot in the RAF, resigned from that. I'm a poet, as I've already said, stand-up comic, theatre company, producer, director, writer, and online businessman for the last 25 years. Yeah, so I've had an interesting life so far, but nothing is more interesting than the last 3 years, is it?
Well,
no, I totally agree. Please, Anna Iversen, introduce yourself as well to the audience.
sure. So my name is Anna, as you just said. I am based in London, and this is where I've been the majority of my adult life. But I come from Sweden originally, and I've always traveled a lot back and forth to Sweden and Denmark, where my husband comes from. And we have 2 children that can speak all 3 languages. And I'm really excited about this opportunity because it's interesting to draw on what we know about Sweden and kind of pull that out into kind of an arena that's slightly larger than Sweden and the surrounding countries. And by way of background, I spent more or less my entire career, which was 20 odd years, working in the financial industry as a lawyer. And I left that in 2015-16 after my parents both had cancer and passed away. And that was kind of my big life-changing moment. And I knew, as you know, that was drawing to a close, that I needed to do something different with my life. And since then I've been working with kind of holistic health of different sorts.
Great.
Pretty
And
much
for
it.
you, Mark, sorry?
Yeah, that's
I'm Cornelia. I have a channel, Cornelia Unfiltered. I used to work in the finance industry as well. And I woke up, several times during my lifetime. But in 2020, I woke up and then I realized I was working with stock market and helped investors, investing companies, and I helped the listed company to gain capital and communicate with their investors. So and then I woke up brutally. It was and then when you realize what you have been exposed to your whole life and the fraud, everything is a lie. You can't do anything but to talk about it, and that's why we are here. And I think normally, Mark, when you have an interview, people want to hear about you. We have like 2 aims. I mean, we have one aim to really get out the information about Wallenberg and Ericsson. And so we have also an agenda with this with this interview that we want we want the whole world to know what role Sweden has played in history, and we want the world to know that we are taking responsibility and we are talking about this, and we feel ashamed actually, and we will try to make this right for everybody. But Sweden's role has not been, it's been huge actually, and we want to discuss that also with you and what you have. Have you read the Ericsson report, for example?
I haven't.
Okay. Yeah.
Please.
And what do you know about Wallenberg?
About what? Sorry.
Wallenberg, the family, the Swedish family, oligarch family.
Oh, well, I don't know a lot about them. I mean, I've been to Sweden a few times, but I haven't really been keeping up to date with what's been going on there because I've been kind of focused on the UK and the States. And yeah, so I can talk about those with authority, but I'm not Sweden, I'm afraid.
Yeah, we will come into that eventually. But you have also been in the US a lot, or is it primarily the UK?
Yeah, I toured the US last year. I did a thing called the Truth Tour, and I was the only non-American that did the whole tour. It was like 17 cities in 30 days. We started in California and went all the way around the country and back again, and that was quite amazing. And I've got a film actually about that being released probably tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
I can show you the trailer if you want.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
that would be great.
I'll just pull it up. Where have I put it?
I think you can share screen, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to find... it's actually here. Good. Okay, just give me a second. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Hello, my name's Mark. 2 years ago, I started talking on YouTube about what was really going on in the world. Then suddenly I know that I'd end up on tour in America. Let's go. Most exhausting thing we've ever done. We've got well over 1,000 hours away from there. It's 3 hours, 20 to kill me, right? Brings me 8 in Kansas City now. The brain just... I might just get a plane home. Yeah, this crazy doctor today. It's like flying a glide up with someone's literally up and down. 53 in here doing this. Econ brands. I'm very grateful. But I need a fag.
Yeah, so that's gonna be interesting. A little bit of fun
It's
there.
out tomorrow.
Yeah, it's just been finished. We've spent a year editing it. We had 80 hours of footage, and we wanted to put something out that was behind the scenes, kind of documentary style, because if we're right, which we are, then that was quite a historical tour, and it was amazing to do. So yeah, I've done that. I've done live shows in England at a monastery in Manchester. That's there are 2 events there, 500 people there. They were just amazing events, and it's all light work. You know, everything I've been doing is actually light work, and that's quite funny because on the surface it just looks like I'm an idiot in a box. But when I went around America, what I realized is that a lot of people were called to do what some of us have been doing, and it's because this is a spiritual war. It's not a physical war; it's a spiritual war, and a lot of us have a mission. That's what I've learned over the last 3 years, because we are the waves of souls that came in according to Dolores Cannon's work, and a lot of us are not from here. We've come to help, which I know sounds completely nuts to some people, but that's what I've experienced. And it's just been an extraordinary 3 years, because I got told by God to start a YouTube channel, which was I used to be embarrassed about saying that, but it's totally true. And my YouTube channel has been taken down twice now. Lost 100,000 subscribers, but I don't care, because we're not doing it for any reason other than the fact that we're trying to help all the other light workers over the last 3 years understand that they're not on their own, and that we're going to win this, because that is what happens, because God wins, which is the book of poetry that I got nagged to bring out by the people that watched all the poetry videos I did over the last 3 years as well. So yeah, it's an exciting time. It's a terrifying time, but it's an amazing time, because I started waking up when I was in the RAF, which is the Royal Air Force, in England 30 odd years ago. I met Prince Philip, and he didn't recognize my uniform, and I thought, that's very strange. He's the boss. And then things started slowly unfolding over the next. So I resigned from the RAF, and I worked in journalism, I worked in TV, and I did all sorts of different things, which that path led me to this point, which I think a lot of people relate to, because in 2020 I was having a full life review. It was crackers, and then I started speaking to spaceships, and I saw a ship came and visited me 2 years ago. And now I see dragons made of light, and I can call the ships in, and it's all very strange, but it's brilliant because the veil is coming down. We are ascending, and it's going to be incredible. Where we're going is incredible, but I know that sounds a bit crazy to some people because it's all very scary and people are dying, and it's just an incredible time because a lot of these things, for me, it's all about the children. I want to save all the children, because that is the biggest problem in the world right now, is child trafficking and adrenochrome. I shouldn't really say that. You're on YouTube, aren't you? Sorry. But that is the biggest issue. There's 22,000 children gone missing every single day since World War II. That's over 1 billion children. How can we live in that world? And I knew about the New World Order 20 years ago. I knew that was coming, and I knew COVID was coming because they'd written it on the Georgia Guidestones. The new 10 Commandments. The first one said, I think it was the first one, said where the objective is to keep humanity in perpetuity with nature under 500 million. So that meant that they wanted to kill 6 billion people, and robotize the rest, which is what COVID's really all about. And in 2020, I realized then that if the bad guys were in control, we'd already be dead, because it was the plan to get Hillary Clinton was supposed to win in 2016, and then she was supposed to take us to war, a nuclear war with Iran, and that would have wiped us all out. And they had FEMA camps all set up, they had guillotines, they had millions of coffins, they had it all ready, but then somebody intervened. So it's a very exciting time.
I agree. Anna?
Completely. So I don't know if we should launch into the topic of the financial system and then kind of interweave that with the kind of Swedish twist to everything, or how you want to play things, Cornelia.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Because I think you even touched on a few of these things, Mark, that I think a lot of people who are, have come to the stage that they've realized that everything's wrong in the world. And they're still living in this, living through it in fear, because they see all the awful stuff that is just around the corner in their view. And I think what we really need to do is to take a step back and think about what we've had, because a lot of the things that people are fearing that is going to happen to us in the future are actually things that we've been living with, but we've just been completely oblivious to it. And the most obvious one there is a financial system. People are, you see so many alternative news media channels, screaming off the top of their lungs that, CBDCs are going to come out and it's going to be the end of everything. It's going to control every single move we make. But in actual fact, our existing financial system does just that. But it's just, kind of cleverly put together, so it looks like this bumbling machine that, if there's anything that we can criticize about it, then perhaps it's just because it's badly put together and it has old systems, and there's, it's kind of, it looks too benign to a lot of people for people to fully understand how bad it is.
Well, the financial system is the main tool of our enslavement, and
it absolutely is. Yes.
I studied economics for 5 years, and nobody mentioned the fractional reserve banking system. And when I found out about that, I was really cross, because
it's even worse than fractional reserve system, I'd say, because then you're actually assuming that money is something. But if you actually pare it down, you can even go into the Bank of England website and have a look at how they define money, and you'll see that money is nothing other than a bank granting someone a loan. So money is no more than debt, by definition. Yeah. And then, of course, there's some notes and coins that are central banks or are responsible for producing, but the rest is just debt. And then built into that system, you have the interest proportion that's never accounted for, because when you create the money, basically, if we just make it really, really simple, when you go to your bank and say that you want to borrow money, they will then, do all their credit checks, whatever they pretend to do, and then when they decide to grant you the loan, that money is then creates a deposit, and that deposit is how money is created. But you have to repay that loan with interest on top of it. But the interest component wasn't created at the same time in monetary terms. So there's always a deficit in the system because the debt proportion is not there. So that means that you have to constantly be creating more debt in the system to cover for the interest that is growing and growing and growing until you reach a point when everything in the real economy, we're all scrambling around in our rat race, doing our hamster wheel, because we have to have growth. We're always talking about constant growth. All that is about is that we have to service, the mounting interest burden on our debt. So
yeah, and if I can fill in, so what happened during the pandemic was that we stopped consuming in the same way. We stopped traveling, we stopped investing. Many of us were in lockdown, not in Sweden though, but in other countries we were in lockdown. So what happened was that the interest that only accelerated more and more and more. And what's really odd, I mean, in China they have gone to the other way. It's kind of you get something in return if you take a loan. But in the Western countries, they have higher rates. And what happened if you already have this debt saturation is that, you need more liquidity. And the liquidity you get from new loans. But when you have 3 years with not the same amount of money creation through loans, but you have the interest, that grows all the time. So now we are in the point that everything is back and forth because we have this mountain of interest and they are hiring the rates. So the liquidity in the market is just going. So for every loan they create, at least 50% go to pay debt, pay back interest and loans. So this is
used in the real economy then.
Yeah, exactly. So and this affects like companies, households, and countries, right? So when we see now that Argentina will go bankrupt and so on, Russia, but I mean they are already working within the QFS, so they are working in the new system. So when they sell out their debt in dollar, everything we know to measure the economy in the country, that is upside down because they are doing the opposite what they should do because they are working, parallel in the new system. So this is so genius. I mean, this plan is so genius, so brilliant.
It is, and I've noticed, I do a lot of international bank transfers, and they've all sped up hugely in the last couple of years, which I think is XRP being implemented across the system, which is a great sign indeed. Which is why we're running a crypto course on my channel as well at the moment, trying to get people up to speed on that. Because I think when Donald Trump announced NFTs in December, he was giving us a very clear signal that crypto is going to be a part of this future. And it's going to be asset backed, which is also exciting. But I don't know where you guys stand on the revaluation. Where do you stand on all of that? Because one thing I've noticed is that there's a lot of people sort of just sat there waiting for this thing to happen instead of rolling their sleeves up and getting on with stuff. How do you feel about that?
Anna, you go first.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mark, that especially, I don't think as much anymore, but I think earlier on, there were definitely people waiting around for money to rain down on them, through some kind of magical revaluation. And it's like completely, we should be doing absolutely the opposite to that because, how can we sit there and wait for this, unknown savior,
Yeah, I mean, that's been one of the big issues. And I saw loads of people. I still see people, waiting for med beds and waiting for the RV, and they think they're going to get trillions of dollars when they've never even run a business before. So back in January, I got the message that we need to start healing and we need to start doing. So I opened a healing center here in Ireland using hyperbaric oxygen chambers, but I set it up as a private members association instead of it being a business. And we made it donation based, so nobody misses out, because oxygen is a bridge for everybody, the people that have been vaccinated, the ones that are unvaccinated. And that's quite extraordinary, because when we had a lot of franchise inquiries, we've got 200 franchise inquiries now. And then it hit me about a month ago, this is a way to actually build a new health system, because the current health system, as most people probably watching this already know, worldwide, is murdering people. And we need to do the opposite, because so there's been a lot of my work in the last 3 years has been about healing and finding out how to gain not just wealth sovereignty, but health sovereignty. Because I think the whole spiritual lesson here is that we've sleepwalked into becoming completely dependent on government. And the word government in and of itself means mind control. And we're just a mind-controlled, sleepwalking race of people born into a prison, effectively, and a farm. It's a prison farm, the earth. But where we're going is towards freedom. And freedom is something you have to earn. You can't just sit back and wait for it to land on your lap. You've got to get up and do something. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I describe it like, sorry, Anna. I describe it like, there will come no savior, but we will get the tools. We will get a system, because this banking system is global, and the top of all central banks is the Bank of International Settlements, and that was actually started, among others, with Wallenberg, the Swedish family. So they are on top of that financial system. They also control the telecom infrastructure in 184 countries. And also they control the internet. So this is what the Ericsson report is all about, that Ericsson can in real time, they are the sixth eye in five eyes, because they control all the cables, the infrastructure. So the banking system runs on power, and that's also Wallenberg, actually, ABB, and you have Ericsson for the telecom. And then they also control Nasdaq. And Nasdaq is not only one stock market. Nasdaq has about 900 employees in Stockholm, and they run 150, the platform for 150 stock markets all over the world. So this is a huge, there is no family with this impact on our day-to-day life. So, and that infrastructure, I mean, you can come and you can have elections and you can discuss, and actually Donald Trump in 2015, he said in a speech that there is a company called Ericsson, and they sell telecom infrastructure to regimes that use that to surveil their own people. So they are on top of this, and also we can find Q posts about this, about how do you win, over an enemy that controls vast communications worldwide, and that is Wallenberg. So that's and we are in the core of this, because they control 40% of our BNP, but they also control the stock market, right? And all the stock markets worldwide. So I think we will get a new system, and I think the White Hats have everything in control, and we know now that Space Force have all the communication. So what happened with Ericsson was that in 2019, in November, they actually took control over Ericsson for 3 years, and they had to pay $1 billion in fine for corruption, but they prolonged that to mid-2024. So we know now that the Justice Department has control over Ericsson, and we know that the Justice Department, due to devolution and everything, is under the Space Force, right? So they have control over this. So what they did was that they took control over internet and all communications worldwide. So so we will get a new system. They will change this system, and also every country has to have their own infrastructure. So what they will do, I think, is to divide Ericsson into 184 pieces. Every country should manage their own system. You can't have one entity that control all of this. They also have AstraZeneca, Atlas Copco. They are in, banking, BIS and SEB in Sweden. Where Soros has his quantum funds. That's in SEB in Stockholm. So this is they are on top of this network that are being taken down, and we can see that from our perspective every day. So it's really amazing. So we will get a new system. We will get some help, but we have to do the work ourselves. We have to take control, and we will do that eventually. But we will need some tools to switch this system, I think.
And that's why a new financial system is such a important component of being able to move forward. Because if we just collapse the existing system, what would happen then? Would we be bartering with each other and going back to an age that we wouldn't even be able to? We wouldn't be able to handle it. There's just too much at stake. So there has to be, that has to be a foundational part of any plan, to have a robust new financial infrastructure that doesn't have all these corrupt elements in it.
But also, I think that when Trump said that, if you get caught, in stealing a diamond, you have to give it back. And we know that they have, stolen from the people. So I believe that, they have seized a lot of assets from the elite. And I think some of that will, land in our lap, so to say. I think so, because you can't just steal and get away with it, because money is actually, it's a fraud.
We've all been robbed by our birth certificates, because they're actually bonds that get traded. And I checked mine a few years ago on a website that's no longer there, and I think I'm owed something like $350 million, because it's been traded so many times over the years. And the same with everybody, because we're just cattle to them.
Exactly. Yeah. And also they say that, when you turn 18, when you do the military, when you study, they add to that value of your bond. So I've heard that too, and it makes sense. And also, have you seen this new documentary from Derek Johnson's work?
Yeah, I was speaking to Nick last night.
Yeah.
Nick
you were.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would really like to interview him. It was great. It was great.
Derek was in that film trailer that I just showed you.
Mm-hmm.
So Derek was in that.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
So Nick made that film. That's just gone viral, and I'm going to Nashville in the middle of October to go. I'm hosting actually the event where that film is being premiered in Nashville.
Wow.
Yeah, I just had that confirmed an hour ago. So yeah, it's exciting stuff, and it's good stuff. And Nick's made an amazing film there. And Derek, it's irrefutable what Derek talks about, even though people still argue with him, because he's talking about military law. It's all there.
But he shouldn't. I have actually done one interview with Derek, and I have the next interview on the 9th of November with Derek. So we done an interview, and Derek Johnson, exactly. So I've talked about this for almost 2 years, and also the thing is that we believe that we are, many of us in Sweden. So I talk about myself. I believe that we are under siege by the US military in Sweden. And the reason for that is due to these companies that have controlled, I mean, everything that the whole world needs. You know, everything from banking system, telecom infrastructure, payment infrastructure, internet, you know, everything that we use for communications is controlled from Sweden. And we have this FRA law. It's really strange. We have, and also we have a Socrates 17. He made a documentary about the Swedish kings of cyber war, and that is also how we have so Swedish people, Wallenberg have controlled, you know, this infrastructure, you know, that and in order to be able to take control over that, they had to put Sweden under siege, because actually in 2017, a company called Telia, a Swedish company, they got caught by the American Justice Department that they had like drained, how do you say, statskassan? Yeah, they have drained the money from regimes, 7 regimes. And during that time, the Swedish state, the Swedish government co-owned 40% of that company. And I mean, the rest of the world can't have a country co-owning a company that is draining, you know, the money from other countries. So this is yeah. So we are kind of in the same process as Washington D.C. with devolution and yeah, law of war manual. So
well, I think it's happening. It's happening globally.
Yeah.
Every country is going through everything. I think everything we're seeing, every politician is an actor right now, and we're not. You know, it's the greatest show on earth, as Nick called it, as Q called it, and it's becoming more and more apparent. And you know, I was at a retreat at the weekend, and there were people there who are not fully awake, but they're seekers, and they were actually, you know, damaged from this, and trying to get help, and realizing that they've, you know, my neighbor, for example, he's come around and he's started to realize that it's causing damage, and it's anecdotal evidence at the moment, but that, you know, a lot of people are starting to realize what's going on. I wish they'd do it quicker. I mean, we've been waiting for a long time, but you know, it is what it is, and that's what's so exciting. But there's going to be a mental, I mean, you know, I'm working with the PHA in the UK, the People's Health Alliance, and you know, Catherine McBean, who set that up, I think she's right. There's going to be a huge mental health problem when people realize the scale of the problem that we are faced with. You know, it's the biggest. It's extraordinary. It's so big. It's beyond belief.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's going to be a tough period for a lot of people, and that's why we have to be strong. And you know, that's why we've also had more time than maybe we wished for to prepare ourselves for what's ahead, because we're going to be needed.
Well, I think we've been tempered. You know, at the beginning of all of this, I called it spiritual quarantine, because, and there's a line in one of my poems about the virus distracted but gave us the time to peel back the layers of your heinous crimes. Because what happened in 2020 is lots and lots of people started going, well, this is weird, what's going on? And instead of watching TV, they painted their houses and they went online and they looked. And the internet, although it's been a weapon against us, has been a phenomenal weapon for us as well. And you know, and the information war is the key to this, which is why so many people started speaking out on. And I've been encouraging anybody to speak out, because the more voices we have, the better. So it's great that you're doing this channel, Cornelia, in Sweden is brilliant. And you know, more, you know, anybody watching this who wants to speak out, get a channel, start speaking. It's not about your ego, it's about getting more people, because you know, they're people are going to be seeking. You know, I said in 2020, I said that they're crossing the road to avoid me here because they know what I'm doing, and some people were spitting and screaming at me, but there'll be a queue around the block when it comes to it, because and it's already happening. And my kids' friends, you know, sit and quiz me and say, "What's going on?" And that's wonderful to see, because you know, 3 years ago I've got 5 children, and I was a bit of an embarrassment to them at the beginning. And they did stop me because I was going to stand outside the school and, slag off the school. But they begged me not to, and I didn't want to embarrass them. But now that, my 13-year-old son's sending me Isaac Cappy videos from TikTok. So it's they are, the kids are the key to this, I think. And we've got a great future because there's loads of I interviewed somebody 6 months ago called Hayden. He's 16 years old and he's got his own YouTube channel and he's at it, and that's what I want to see, the future, because they're still getting indoctrinated to hell in schools. And it's shocking what's happening to the kids worldwide, but I'm an apocalyptimist, and I think, which means I'm just an optimist about the apocalypse, which is the great unveiling, not the end of the world. And, I think we've got a fantastic future, but we've got to hold tight and we've got to prepare. So this information that you guys have about the financial system is fantastic. People need to look after themselves, their diet, and, and we've all learned so much. Those of us that are awake have had to really up our game in the last 3 years and really start to understand. There's things that I won't say on here because it's your YouTube channel and I don't want it to get taken down. But, you can't catch, for example, people still don't get that because pretty much everything the government and the education systems ever told us is a complete lie. And we have to do the complete opposite of what they say, or just think, whatever they've said, we just think the opposite, like catching, for example.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one thing that really fascinates me as well with who's kind of understanding what's going on and who's not, and trying to kind of get a grip on that, because what I really find is that a lot of the people that I was working side by side with throughout my kind of formal career, they're the ones who are least aware. But if you think about it, they're the ones who are the most caught by this system, because not only have you gone through the educational system, you've been told that you are better than others, maybe in other words, but you know what I mean, because you have a fancy title and a nice office and important work to do, and you're spending 12 hours plus in the office doing all that work. And then even though you might be able to have been able to afford all sorts of things for you and your family, the things that you want to be able to afford when you get into those kind of positions, they just become greater and greater as the years go on, and the stress just mounts. So the hamster wheel doesn't ever go away. It just gets bigger and bigger and more difficult to maneuver. And how can you then expect that people like that, would have, the time or the energy or anything of that sort to try to figure out what's wrong with everything? They can just feel inside themselves this emptiness, and it's just getting greater and greater and greater. And I think that's what these people are reaching now. So they might not be able to point at what's exactly what's wrong, or how the world really is screwed together, but they can just feel that all these things have no purpose. They just don't have any. It doesn't have the allure it had some years ago.
Mark.
Yeah, I'm just leaving the space for you, Cornelia.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So how I see it is that, the research that Derek has done and this Nick Albert film is kind of the takedown from 2015. What we can add is kind of this, how the deep state is, how it functions. The network, how they work together, all these companies, how they are glued together, and how the fraud is conducted, kind of. And the thing is that people ask me, is it power they want? Is it money they want? What do they want? And what I have come to realize is that it's not none of that. It's like the fraud is so monumental, is so entrenched, that if you just leak anywhere, it exposes everything, the whole fraud. And that is what has happened now. So what we can add with all these pieces, how they have, this Trump said that there are peoples in the shadows that you have never heard about. It's not Soros, it's not Gates, it's not the Rothschilds. there are company interests that are working together worldwide, and they just want to stay in power. And if if we realize what they have done to our personal numbers and the Vatican, City of London, Washington DC, I mean, that's how the deep state has operated, with their own laws, own police, own military. That's kind of the network. And then you have all this the company structure that have worked together. And that's so interesting to have all these pieces. So when I found Derek, it was like, okay, that's a piece of the puzzle. That is how the takedown, I mean, what Trump put in place, to make this possible to actually take down this enemy globally, our enemy. And so that's the kind of, so with everything that we say, it works perfectly together when we see the whole puzzle, and there are many pieces that they haven't shown us yet. And I think many people will be really, and me as well, we will be shocked when we see, I mean, the depth of this.
And do you know what's really crazy?
No.
We created all of it.
Yeah.
And you can hand over all of your emotional stuff to Carly the Destroyer, and we're going to evolve through this and go into a different dimension. I mean, I feel like I live in multiple dimensions anyway, and have to ground myself to come back to 3D and be a communicator. But I'm often in other dimensions, and it's amazing. That's where we're going. It's just amazing. But we created the whole thing. That's the whole point. And Dolores Cannon said there were a lot of background characters on this planet, and I think it's possibly 80% of this planet are non-player characters, NPCs, which is also interesting as well.
Anna?
Ooh, I had a thought in my head before you started now, but I can't remember what I was going to say. But you bring up some interesting things there. So how do we pull this all together?
Well, we're doing it now. We're doing it just by being here. When I was I'm in this town in the west of Ireland, and I look back on it and I'm like, how did I end up here? And it actually started 28 years ago, because I cast a girl in a play whose mother was a famous singer from this town, who was friends with some people that came from Ireland, and then I married their daughter, and then it's just been pulling me in for 28 years. And when I landed here, it was just 2 years before COVID, and I was like, what am I doing here? Because I was living in Morocco before that, and that was weird, because when I was living in Morocco, I met this French guy who was like my neighbor. We were going to set up a school together, and I was following the story of the Dragon family money at the time, which Benjamin Fulford was covering, and this was in 2014. And the story was that these $1 trillion bonds were being carried across Europe by this Irish guy, and then they were going to be ratified by the Federal Reserve, and there were 220 massive humanitarian projects ready to go with these funds, because these funds were trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. And when I met this guy, I told him this over a few drinks, and he said, "You're joking, I am their broker." And I was like, "What?" And I spent 3 years listening into meetings about how these bonds were going to be cashed in, and then how they got stolen by somebody at Deutsche Bank, and it's like all of this stuff suddenly is all true. And it was, I knew it was true a long time ago. And that, one of my friends died in 9/11 in the towers, and I followed his brother is one of my best friends from school. I interviewed him recently on my channel, and I followed him all the way through this process of trying to unearth the truth, which included him having meetings with MI6, with politicians, with police, and it was just getting nowhere, absolutely nowhere. I mean, 9/11's I call it the second biggest crime on the human race. It's probably the third or fourth when you actually think about all the harvesting that goes on with the children. But it's utterly extraordinary. And if we can shift our focus, you said earlier, Anna, about this state of fear that people are in, it's all about frequency, and fear is a low density frequency that they feed off. It creates something called loosh. The fourth dimensional entities feed off loosh, and the fourth dimensional entities are real, because John Dee, Queen Elizabeth I. I talk about him quite a lot. He was the guy that sank the Spanish Armada 3 or 4 times off the coast of Ireland, just 30 miles down the road from me. And he did a deal with the fourth dimensional entities in exchange for the blood of children, for the knowledge of how the universe really works. And that's all kind of magical stuff. And that line followed through from John Dee through to Ian Fleming, for Aleister Crowley, W.B. Yeats here in the west of Ireland. And they were all doing magic. And that followed through to Jimmy Savile and the recent TV presenters that have been deposed in the UK. And this line of black magic and all of that kind of stuff this is why, one of the reasons why there's a lot of swearing in my poetry, because it's all about reclaiming the words, because words are spells. That's why it's called spelling. And we are subject to these spells all the time, but they only work. The mind control only works when you can't see it. That's what the word occult means. It means, hidden. And once you see behind that and reclaim your power, they have zero power over us. And all the power that they've had over us really has been because they've deceived us, and it's just a question of us going, well, hang on a minute. Am I an eternal spirit? Am I really going to die? Yes or no? And as soon as you realize you're an eternal spirit, and you are, then why would you be afraid of anything? Because fear of death is their number one control mechanism. Before money, before everything, education, before everything else, it's the fear of death is the key to all of this, and we have to. COVID just proved that. Look how terrified everybody was. It's nuts.
Yeah, and actually, I know exactly when I decided that I was not going to fear anything again, and it was nearly 2 years ago now. And
Brilliant.
So up until that point, and it was at the time when my husband's employer was trying to coerce him into taking, you know what. And I was really at that moment like, how am I going to play this one out? Because he was really, on his way to the GP nearly, and I said, this is just not on, and it didn't happen. But that was the moment I decided I'm not going to fear anything anymore. This is not going to get me anywhere, and
Good.
It's been so liberating.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's amazingly liberating.
Mm.
And there's been moments in my life when I've been afraid of the system and stuff, but I was writing blog posts 10, 15 years ago about just step into the void, because you're always taken care of. God's got your back all the time. You're never alone. You've got angels watching over you, for God's sake. We are so powerful. Why do you think they go to all these lengths to contain us? Because we're so powerful. And we the unlocking of our DNA. Remember, they tell us 97% of our DNA is junk. No, it isn't. It's just been locked away, and it's being reactivated. And I'm seeing it everywhere. People's psychic abilities are going through the roof. All the stuff I told you earlier about seeing ships and stuff like that. It sounds bonkers, but it's true. It's real. And and some of us are here to share that. And I didn't know this. When I first started the YouTube channel 3 years ago, I was like, what am I going to talk about? I don't know anything. And then I was told, yes, actually you do, because you've been studying this for 30 years. And I was like, oh yeah, I have actually. And then I went on to, I think it was Charlie Ward's channel, and I started talking about my earliest memory being demons trying to recruit me in 1973. And after that show, I was like, oh God, I'm ruined, because I've had a business for donkey's years. And I thought, I'm all over the internet talking about demonic possession. But what happened is, lots of people started emailing me, say, yeah, that happened to me. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Maybe that's what this is all about. It's just letting people know it's safe to talk about these things. And it is. It's getting that way. people, I was writing a Substack the other day, and I started it with, I'll just pull up the line actually, because it was, I think my question, the first line of this Substack made me laugh. It's not published yet, but I said, what did I say? Just going to find it. It's worth sharing. This is a bigger document than I thought it was, right? Okay. Yeah. So I said, I just had interdimensional surgery from an amethyst crystal this afternoon. And I said, that's a line. That's a genuine line from an average phone conversation that I have now in 2023. But 4 years ago, never have a phone conversation like that. I'm hanging out with people that talk about dimensions and other planets and the Orion Wars and all of this kind of stuff, and we're remembering these things. These things are coming back to us. And one of my big messages to everybody is, please go and try and find out who you really are. Go and have some past life regression therapy. Go and do magic mushrooms. Go and look into who you really are. Look into the numerology of your name. All of these things add up to start to piece your own puzzle together, because this is an internal job, because all of this is about your connection to the creator. And that's why it's so exciting, actually. And people should start shifting their focus from fear to going, well, all it's ever been is a choice between fear and love. That's the whole of life. Just choose love. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. It's the greatest frequency there is. And that's what we just got to tune into ourselves on a daily basis and ground ourselves and drink good water and all that good stuff. But the three-dimensional reality is only part of the puzzle. We are multi-dimensional beings, and it is all about us waking up to that fact. So I think the financial system and everything else is very interesting. But again, I think it's a bridge. I think if there is a QFS, it's a bridge to a time when we don't need money, because in the fifth dimension and above, we don't need any of these things, because they're all constructs.
Yeah.
Basically.
But it's an essential bridge to have for us to be able to transition to a world that is completely different from the one that we know right now.
Yeah. I'm more like in Russia now, they have actually distributed over 700,000 books with rewritten history. So I'm kind of more focused on, discussing our real history. I mean, what we have been put up through, through this system, and also get to know, the fraud and how they have tricked us, how they actually did it, and our true story. So I don't live so much in the future. I try to get people with me, to understand, and what we all need. In order to be able to buy and sell things to each other. Not everybody can produce their own food. We can go hunt. We have to buy things and change. So we need this financial system for some time. But I think it will be very different. But it's also interesting when you go through everything with what they have, the synergies between the kind of our food, our medicine, they have, all these synergies, they have been working together and they have made us sick, and they have, so it's a problem, reaction, solution all the time, so for me, that's really important. And I'm on a mission to tell our story. What have the Swedes done, and how come the whole world is so annoyed with the Swedish people? Why does Erdogan
don't feel bad, because you're not the only country. There's every country. Countries don't really exist anyway, but the people behind, it's the people behind the countries that's the problem. And Sweden's not the only one. Look at Ireland, right? You've got this. I'm living in the west of Ireland, and they talk. They're still teaching the famine story here to kids. That wasn't a famine. That was the British decimating the population. It was a mass murder. It was a genocide. But it wasn't really the British. It was the people behind the British, because it's always been about these dark controllers in the background. So don't feel so guilty about it, Swedish people, because you're all marvelous. I love Sweden. It's a fantastic country.
Yeah, I understand that, but still, we have to kind of take responsibility, because actually we could have done more, because we have been so indoctrinated that if we don't sell guns or weapons, another entity will do that. But actually the Swedish people has gained nothing from that. So we have Saab, also owned by Wallenberg, and they sell all this JAS Gripen, and also Erdogan, he says that we are an incubator for terrorism. And so all this with NATO playing out with Sweden is for the the rest of the world to get to know Sweden and what we have done. So everything would unfold, and we have to be on top of this because we have caused a lot of wars and people from Syria and Sudan. We have Lundin Oil. They are up to trial now for genocide, and this is. We haven't done enough actually, and we have to rewrite our history and also the whole world. So, and Russia has already started, so they are rewriting their history and distributing it to the children, and that's really important. So that's kind of my aim, and I think that's important for us to really teach our children. And we don't want this to happen again, so we have to learn also. We have to learn from history. We can't just live in another dimension, and in the future we have to cope with what we have done and take responsibility and really make sure that this won't happen again. And in order for us to realize what have gone wrong, we have to just pause and realize what has happened. How did it happen? And also with COVID, that was a really interesting, to see the behavior, how easy we turned on each other. How we just, obeyed, we complied. And what is this? I don't think many of us really thought it could go this quickly for everybody to just comply with anything.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier, sorry I cut you off now, Cornelia, that Sweden didn't have lockdowns, and it's something that's been kind of celebrated by a lot of people. But I have to just interject and say that, yes, there may not have been formal lockdowns in the way that we saw in many other countries, but it was big because the Swedish people are so extremely compliant, so they didn't need a lockdown. They were still, obeying all the same stupid rules that, everyone else had. So there was no difference there. And I think that also goes, if we reflect on the Swedish psyche, I think that the Swedish people have been conditioned for such a long time. Swedes really think that they're doing the right thing all the time, and that they are this humanitarian superpower, and that they go out and tell the rest of the world how they should live their lives because they know better. And they say it in this loving way. So it's not like, the American way of doing it, of course, is just to say, America's the biggest and the best, and you better, listen to us and do as we say. But the Swedes are really thinking that they're going out there educating the world. But what they're actually doing is exact opposite of what they think they're doing. And that is what is really tragic, because, you have this small country with beautiful nature, and then, a population that really, really believes that they're doing these wonderful things in the world.
Well, that goes for every country as well. But I'm going to have to go. Can I leave you with a poem?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, I'll just pop this on. So this is my website, themarkattwoodshow.com. All of my work's there.
Don't comply, by Mark Attwood. Don't comply. It's all a lie. Your dream is ending soon. It's time to start the building. Build the world anew. All the facts you thought you knew are crumbling to dust. The seeds are sown inside your soul. Now discard the husks. Elementals everywhere, guiding lights to see. Standing firm in the storm, rooted like the trees. The wisdom of the ages surfacing at last. The future in our hands. Exterminate the past. Don't comply, it's all a lie. Do you see it yet? The hourglass is turning hard. With gratitude, forget. The world you knew is fading fast. We have to let it go. Don't comply, it's all a lie. When it's time, you'll know.
Lovely to meet you. Thanks, Cornelia. Thanks, Anna. Got to go because I'm doing a live show on Rumble in 6 minutes and I need a cup of tea.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mark.
Bye bye. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Tack er.
Tack så mycket.
Tack så mycket. Okej. Men då avrundar vi. Tack så mycket Anna för att du var med också.
Tusen tack, det var jättekul.
Ja, ha det gott.
Detsamma, vi hörs.
Tack allihopa som var med på liven.